Well, we sure have been watching the news and the headlines flying fast and furious since the reelection of Donald Trump into the White House. One of the biggest things that we're hearing about is the MAHA movement, Make America Healthy Again. I'm going to spend the next 40 minutes or so talking to my friend and yours, the amazing Dr. Mark Sherwood, about the MAHA movement, how we can make America healthy again, and we're going to also answer some listener questions. This is the Heidi St. John podcast. Stick around. I think you're going to be encouraged. So, Dr. Mark, my friend, welcome back to the show. Good to see you.
Hey, good to see you too. I always appreciate seeing you. It's been quite a few weeks, hasn't it?
Well, it seems like I feel like the time between me seeing you and the world going by is 100 million times faster than it used to be, because the headlines are just coming at us fast and furious right now. And every day you wake up, you never know, what's the new Trump cabinet appointment that he's going to make, who's going to be doing what, who's suing who's shooting rockets over in the Ukraine. What's your takeaway for all the headlines that you're seeing happening in the news right now?
One word I have that keeps coming up is anticipation. I don't know what's happening next. It's just this anticipatory feeling I get, like what's happening tomorrow before it happens today. And I think, like you, it is easy to get hung up in the headlines. And I've tried to sort of balance that, understanding what's going on, because that's wisdom to know what's going on, but not be overly focused on that to consume my thoughts to prevent me from what I'm supposed to be doing in the moment, which is my part.
Right. And I think, just like before, you and I were talking about, what happens if Kamala Harris gets elected. Mm-hmm. I'm never going to stop being thankful that woman did not ascend into the White House. Can you even imagine how emboldened the transgender movement, how emboldened the sexualization of our children and all the weird stuff that's been happening, because our country has really been hijacked by the left.
Yeah.
And we have a moment right now, and one of the big deals that everyone's talking about, and I think this is probably the first time in the history of a presidential election where there actually is a focus, a real one, on health. And I'm excited about it. I'm excited. I don't know how much he's going to be able to do, but he is a trial attorney, and so hopefully RFK is going to be able to take some of the teeth out of some of these agencies that have really been hurting the country. But what's your, when you look at the MAHA movement, what comes to your mind? I mean, you've been in medicine for kind of a long time. I know this is a passion of yours, helping people feel good in their own skin and actually get to the root of problems. And on some level, I would think you're pretty excited about this.
I am. This is something, this MAHA movement, without the MAHA name and acronym to it, it's been something my wife and I have been doing for the last 25 years. So, I'm happy it's becoming mainstream communication. I think that, as I've always said, the greatest thing we could do for this country is to decapitate the head of big pharma influence with money. And I mean that. I use that word intentionally right now. I'm not trying to be like violent. That's not the point. But you have to take the head off the snake in that situation.
Right.
And the biggest thing we can do for our country, which I think that the Department of Health and Human Services can engineer, is the ability to stop big pharma from advertising on our mainstream TV and radio networks.
Yep.
If you can do that, and that alone, you will make a dent in the pharmaceutical lobbyist influence in our nation, because they won't be able to influence these mainstream media networks, et cetera, like they have been. I think secondly behind that is, and this is important, I'm glad we're talking about it. I'm glad it's a front page headline news about the new administration. I'm glad RFK has been granted the ability to stand in that position. I mean, he should be very honored, and I honor him for getting to do that, because he has said the right things in that area. However, it is very important that we as American people do not have to lean to dependence upon the government to make our health happen. We have the opportunity right now to do it, and we don't need to require or want the government to make it happen for us. It is a conversation, but we make it happen for ourselves. We cannot make America healthy. We can't make America great unless we make ourselves healthy and great. And we have every opportunity to do that in America. We are not short of materials. We're not short of abilities. We're not short of substances. And so we have that right now, and I hope we'll get that.
Yeah, I do too. And to me, this is the first time I've seen a mainstream political candidate and a mainstream political party put an emphasis on health. And the reality is, Americans are sicker now than we've ever been. More obese. We're struggling with diabetes. We've got a mental health crisis the size of New York in this country. And RFK's big deal is to say, listen, we have to clean up the public health agencies, the CDC, the NIH, the FDA, the U.S. Department of Agriculture. And it seems to me that's a pretty good job. I think that's a pretty good place to start. The New York Times is making fun of him because he's been a critic, as you know, of vaccines for a really long time. But it seems to me that even in that department, most thinking people now are starting to come around to that way of thinking. They're saying you should be skeptical. What do you say? You think this is the right approach, that he goes after these public health agencies and starts talking in a more open forum about the efficacy of vaccines?
I do. I think that vaccines, probably starting out way back 100 years ago, with polio vaccines, you and I have talked about this, Heidi. I think they were probably well intended at that point. There's probably a good-hearted person. And I, for one, know enough about immunology and physiology to understand that if you bring in a substance that is an inert virus, for example, and bring it into the system adapts and can create memories. To even understand that concept is really brilliant, because God made our immune system have a memory. So the memory to be able to create these antibodies to this virus that you might face in the future is pretty brilliant, right?
Yeah, it is. And almost like we were created by a God that is all-knowing and omnipotent.
Yeah, and it's like, I don't think that's necessarily a bad idea, but when you started to transfer the liability away from the manufacturers and put it in the hands of the government, I believe that was done under the Reagan administration, it was just bad news after that, and it became a money pit. People that were investing in vaccine developments were going to get rich, and that's what happened. And the influence went from about 5 vaccines per year for children under 2 to over 25 per year for children under 2 within 1 year. And, now we're, nearly 100 of those things probably are developed by now that are approved by the CDC. And with that said, we do need to be asking the question, because they are instilling the immune system trigger, which creates inflammation. They're supposed to do that. But we already have an inflamed terrain or body because of the inflammatory Western chemically induced, genetically modified, altered diet we have. So we're getting a double whammy here, and we should be asking the question, and he is right on target with that.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. And it seems to me that as RFK sort of wades into this water, I mean, that's assuming, right, that he gets past the confirmation in the Senate. I saw that Mike Pence has now come out against his Senate confirmation because he says that RFK is not pro-life. And that's true. RFK is not pro-life. Although I got to say, I kind of want to just sit down with Vice President Pence and say, it's obvious to everyone now that you have a bad attitude, that that you've got an axe to grind, because why he would stand in the way of the appointment, because really abortion is not a federal issue anymore, right? It is a states' rights issue. And I think it gives us the opportunity to make the case for life. Yeah. And Governor Pence, the ex-vice president of the United States, is standing now in direct opposition. Have you been reading this?
Yeah, and I do not support what former Vice President Pence said. I do not support him in this analysis. It's going to sound strange, but I do believe that RFK is pro-life. He might not
be
personally pro-life in the way that former Vice President Pence is viewing it, but he is saying, in effect, I want people to live and not die from the idea of what we're doing in America. They're both right in a sense, and if they could both acknowledge the common ground, they just have a different way of sort of articulating that. And I get Mike Pence's argument, but let's face it, you're not going to see a national ban on abortion. The issue has been kicked back to the states, where it always was and should have been in the beginning, but we blew it. And so here it is. And like I've said, Heidi, I am a product of a rape situation where abortion was discussed. You and I know that, and I'm glad somebody gave me a chance. But
Yeah.
once you allow the abortion discussion and the abortion issue to happen, you've already opened Pandora's box and you're not going to shut it again. That's just the
Hmm.
facts of life. You may shut it tight in some states, you may control it to a point in some states, but it's open and people are going to choose
Hmm.
to do it right now. You're not going to stop them from doing that. I'm against it. You're against it. Mike Pence is against it. But we can't stop human will. We can't stop human nature. And you can't enact laws to make people moral.
Right. You can't. Although I would say, and I know you would too, certainly we made slavery illegal.
Yes, we did.
So can we make abortion illegal?
I think we can. I think that we had an opportunity way back when, and it probably was at one point. But thank you to our politicians to allow the Supreme Court to form an opinion that now
Right.
the state governments, which had no business bowing down to a Supreme Court that doesn't make laws, by the way, they render opinions.
Come
They
on.
made laws based upon the opinion, and they made practices based upon the opinion because we elevated the Supreme Court to a place they never needed to be.
Right. Yeah, that's true. Well, and I think we had an opportunity in the culture, right? We missed a cultural moment and the church basically was AWOL for it,
Yes.
right? So where were God's people when all this stuff was happening in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s and the early 2000s? I mean, now it's kicked back to the States. I was frankly really disappointed when RFK, who says he's personally pro-life but publicly pro-choice.
Mhm.
I think that's a
I
cowardice.
know.
That shows cowardice to me. It's like, dude, you either think it's murder or you don't.
Yeah.
And to me, that was frustrating. But I'm on RFK's side in his Mahav movement. He's saying he wants to battle chronic disease in America by breaking the stranglehold of the processed food lobby, exposing the flaws in vaccine science, and moving forcefully to clear out corruption at America's health agencies, which sounds like it could involve eliminating entire departments. And for that, I say, rah, rah, rah.
Mhm.
You know, we need to eliminate a lot of these departments in the same way that we need to eliminate the Department of Education. I heard Ben Shapiro this morning talking about he thinks we should get rid of the EPA and it
Yeah.
should be some guy with a pool. You know, the guy who goes around and tests your pool water. Like he said, you one employee at the EPA and he can pick whoever pool he wants to go to that day and go test their pool and that's it. He feels like the EPA's overreach. It's not the job of the federal government, and I think that's a lot of the problem that we have in our federal government right now. It's bloated and
Yeah.
outside of the intended jurisdiction that the founding fathers gave it.
It's too big. Three-letter agencies are four-letter words. People can quote me on
Yes.
that. That's just the way it is. It's that bad. And it's really a situation where you're talking about a necessary purge at the top. Do we need some sort of regulatory bodies with commissions and people and
Which would be
scientists?
great if they weren't bought by lobbyists.
Yeah, and so you stop the lobbying potential there and clean all that up and clean up the donation process and then you can have people that can have real dialogue. And for RFK and everyone else in President Trump's cabinet, my advice to each of them would be to appoint people in advisory positions that are
Hmm.
common folks that
Yep.
practice what they preach, that actually do the job, and that are not just traveling speakers or traveling donors or influential, social media people. Like
Hmm.
I would say for a person like yourself, you're actively out there pushing in the homeschool environment, talking about where does education belong? Not the federal government,
Right.
not in the government at all. You're talking about in the home, man, in the states. You're just right there, and that is right. People like
Yeah.
Heidi St. John need to be in places that their voice can be heard as at least one voice that's communicating from that standpoint.
Well, thank you, and I'm hoping that the administration reaches out to people like Mark Sherwood who have been in the field, especially when we're talking about medicine and looking to root causes. We've been thrown pharmaceuticals at things for now decades and decades in this country, and we're sicker than we've ever been. And I'm hopeful, and I know you are too, that we have a chance to actually turn it around.
I think we can, and I think the discussion in itself, the
It's
conversation itself
good.
is a gift, and I think people are aware of
Yep.
it right now. I in our field, and I've been on the road a little bit lately and here in the office where I am now, and the conversation is more excited here in our 25,000 plus patient base, and it's good. So I'm thankful that we're here, and now we must act upon the opportunity that we've been given.
Yeah, that's true. And it starts really with what you are always saying every time you come on this show, personal
Yeah.
responsibility. We've got to stop looking to other people and start, even if it's something little every day that we do, the little changes that we make every day, even if it's 10 minutes of exercise and you haven't been exercising before and you don't think you can do it. You've said for years, and I think, man, it's so true. Start small. Just start something. Like if you've never exercised before and you think I just can't do it, I don't have the muscle mass, I don't have the strength. If you do it for 5 minutes one day, maybe you can do it for 6 minutes the next day. How do people get started, Mark, is they want to change? Because we're coming into the winter months now. And a lot of people, they love to, jog outside or they like to be outside. Now they're going to be inside for the winter months, and people can get discouraged and they can start, sitting down and eating a bunch of bonbons while they're watching Netflix at night. And you're trying to encourage people in the winter months. This is actually a really good time to get into a habit. Get up early, even if it's dark outside, get up early and exercise. Give us a little bit of direction for the winter months so that we can actually stay healthy and get even healthier instead of getting sicker in the winter months.
Well, understand, first of all, that seasons are for reasons, and that's the way God designed those things. So, winter months, people can get down and blue, it's darker more and colder more. Fine. There's a reason for that. So trust God in the reason for the season. And with that said, I think number one, you got to have a plan, right? You mentioned to get up early. You got to have a plan to get up in the morning. You got to have a plan to move, right? Movement is life. Lack of movement is death. The more you move, the more you live. The less you move, the closer you are to rigor mortis. So move.
It's true.
Find
What
places
time do you
to
get
train.
up in the morning?
I get up at 4:30 in the morning.
I knew you were going to say that. Oh
Yeah,
my
and I
word.
do. And
4:30.
routines, routines. And this is important. This is a life principle that I've learned that is true, and I've learned that if I do this, God honors it. It is being predictable creates reliability, which yields consistency, which yields trustworthiness. And that's a very
That's
important.
good.
Yeah, it's
You should say that again.
reliability yields consistency, which yields predictability, which yields trustworthiness.
That's
And
good.
trustworthiness is the ability to trust what you're doing, to trust yourself, because how many people out there fail because they don't even trust their own self, and where does that come from? Jesus was predictable. I always use the scripture that's got this little caption there, as was his custom. Yeah, you heard that?
Yeah.
We sort
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
diminished that, as was his custom. So he went over to pray, as was his custom. So that's what I do in the morning. I get up and I pray and I spend time just meditating on whatever. I don't do a formula kind of thing. It's quiet. It's
Well,
just me.
walk me through like a day in the life of Dr. Mark Sherwood and Dr. Michelle, because I
Yeah.
think it's important for people to kind of have an idea. And actually, it's true. I tend to get up around 6 o'clock,
Mhm.
and if I don't do that, dude, if I sleep in every
Yeah.
day, then my day runs me over and leaves me on the side of the road for dead, because I have to get into the studio. I have to homeschool my daughter. I have to plan for dinner in the evening. And if I don't set the time aside to read my Bible, to exercise, to, take care of myself in the morning, whether it's spiritually and emotionally and physically, I'm not going to get an opportunity for the rest of the day. And that's true.
Yeah. Failing to plan is planning to fail. There's no question
Yep.
about that. And so this is just my wife and I. We don't have the market on what is right for everybody, but I do know that
Does she get up with you?
she does. We get up at 4:30 in the morning.
4:30. Oh
Yep.
my word.
And
What time you go to bed?
usually about 8:30.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. That
and I've
makes
learned
sense.
that because I learned that it's all about backing up to create what you want, and so I'll get up
That's
and
so
I'll
good.
I'll I'll pray, and for me,
Mm-hmm.
this is just me. I will get on my knees because I feel like I need to humble myself in a place like
Mm-hmm.
that, and
Mm-hmm.
and I will pray, and then I will kind of sit around and kind of meditate things, and I get ready to go to work. at that point.
Wow.
Work is going to
Wow.
be work out at that point. So I go there and I work out, and I will begin to get that done. I'm going to work out, and I'll probably work out 45 minutes to an hour. I don't spend 3 hours like people might guess.
Mm-hmm.
Then I'll go to work, and every person that we deal with at work gets our best. You got to leave them better than you found them, even if you don't want to. You always give it your best. And then at the end of the
Mm-hmm.
day, I'm going to go home and I'm going to probably have some dinner, spend time with my wife, and get quiet. And I'm not thinking about the next day until the end of the day. And then I get up the
Mm-hmm.
next day and do it again. So
Mm-hmm.
it's just kind of a really linear, predictable process. And I've learned over time it works.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think there's something, and of course, there, this is hard, I think, for women, especially that have a lot of, children. They're in the middle of the childbearing years, or they've got a bunch of little ones that they're homeschooling. But there really is something, and people ask me all the time, how did you write 10 books? Well, I largely did it in the morning,
Yeah.
really early up before my children, because I knew that once my kids were awake, and I think this is kind of a common denominator, isn't it? People who are successful are typically not sleeping in. They're getting up.
There was a book I read a long, long time ago, and this is not a shameless plug for the book, but I read a lot. So reading is good, like you say.
Yes, I agree.
I've written 4 books, and I think that the idea of little baby habits. I read that
Yep.
book, Atomic Habits. It's a New York Times bestseller, not Christian book, but that's not the point. It talks about baby steps, small habits yield big predictable results. And how do you build a house? You don't start putting the roof on the darn thing. You don't start painting the walls. You build it foundation up. And if the foundation is not solid, the biblical principle there is that when the winds come, which is symbolic of life,
Yep.
you're going to get
Storms.
blown down, man. It's not going to
Mm-hmm.
stand because it's not built on the solid rock, the principles with which we can trust that the building won't be rocked.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I was talking to David and Jason Benham, and they were saying, once you get into the habit of this, it's reliable. I'm going to get up every day. I'm going to go and work out.
Yeah.
He said they call them stackable habits, right?
Yeah.
Once you've got one habit going, you can stack another one on top of it. And the wintertime, I want people to listen to this and be encouraged, because we're coming up on Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
The next couple of months, especially if you live, in the Midwest or any place that's not, Florida or Texas or Georgia, it's going to be, indoor weather in most of the United States. But it's no reason for us to lose ground or feel like we're going backward, right? In some respects, it's almost an opportunity, because we are home a little bit more, to get healthier, right?
Yeah, I look at this time of year as a special time of year, and I tell people dig in harder, because we always think about what is Thanksgiving, what's Christmas. It's a time to be thankful. So
Yeah.
what are we thankful for, man? I'm thankful for life. When you move, it is not a chore. It's not a drudgery. It's a celebration that you can move. And so
Yeah.
I view my exercise like this. I will listen to praise and worship while I exercise, not headbanger stuff. I'm thinking,
Mm-hmm.
Lord,
Mm-hmm.
thank you for giving me the opportunity to move. So wintertime, you can, if you can't find some exercise equipment inside, like a treadmill or stationary bike or something like that, just walk, man. Walk around your house. That's walk around the block. Put some warm clothes on. It is good to get out and get some air, even if it's cold. You can always put
Yeah.
more clothes on. It's always
Yeah.
a good thing. And then think about it, don't get off track with eating. And there's no reason for that, because if you like the holidays, find recipes that are blends of the same flavor but good ingredients. And, if you like the holidays, don't live like hell. So, God can't bless you. That's crazy.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's
Yeah.
really true. Yeah, and I think, that's a great conversation we should probably have next time you're on, is just talking about what are some really good foods. I was
Yeah.
just reading about the benefits of the sweet potato, dude.
Totally.
Like the sweet, not like covered in marshmallow,
Yeah.
but sweet potatoes are actually really good for you. Put a little miso sauce on them, or a little bit of, grass-fed butter, and you are off to the races, right?
I'm going to email you my
Ooh.
special holiday recipe book. And
What?
so, yeah, I've got one. I made this several years ago, and it's got a almond flour crust apple pie. It's got some quinoa stuffing.
What?
It's really, really good. So you can share it with all the listeners. Enjoy.
All right, so we'll do
Make
this,
it
you guys.
enjoy.
If you guys will subscribe to the Heidi St. John podcast, to the blog, then we'll send that out to you as a freebie.
There you
But
go.
that's great. I love that. Yeah, send it to me. I love that. We've got
Love
some
free
listener
stuff.
questions. I do too. You want to jump in?
Yes.
All right, Melissa in Washington. She says, my good cholesterol is so good, 82, that now it's bad. Is it actually bad, or is it just mainstream medicine wanting me to start a med? The ratio is 2.9. What is the best way to lower HDL?
Melissa, don't lower HDL. HDL is actually really good. It is protective because its job is to interact with damaged LDL in the blood, which brings me to the next point about cholesterol in general. Total cholesterol measurement is not relevant, nor is total LDL measurement relevant to determine any sort of clinical decision. And don't lower cholesterol, Melissa, especially because it's high. That is not wisdom. You know, we need cholesterol
Yes.
for brain, for cell membrane repair, and also for hormone formation. Um, the ratio that you gave at 2.9 is not relevant. That is old school stuff driven by a pharmaceutically controlled system designed to create medication dependency and probably designed to create disease processes because the Alzheimer's dementia concept has gone up with the increased prescription statin drug phenomenon that we
Yep.
have. And so
Yep.
you also see statin drugs dumped into waters, supplies, and that's unfortunate because since they're used to depress cholesterol, which makes hormones, you're seeing the demasculization of our society. And I directly think that the drug statin getting in our water supply contributes to that as well, And so what you want to measure just super quick on cholesterol markers, you want to measure a marker called ox-LDL, which measures damaged LDL. That's important. If it's not damaged, we don't care how high LDL goes. You want to measure something called LPPLA2. It stands for lipoprotein phospholipase associated 2, but don't think about it as anything other than LPPLA2, which is really a marker for the pressurization of plaque potential buildup in the arteries. And then you also want to do a section called lipoprotein fractionation, which basically takes your LDL, HDL, and other types of lipoproteins apart, and it looks at each of them to determine if it's getting small or not. Small particles create big problems. Big particles create no problems. So measuring the right things and proper interpretation is critical when you're looking at lipids.
If you're going to go in for a lipid profile, you got to go in fasting?
You do, because if you don't go in fasting, your triglycerides will be elevated a little bit, and that will also show up a little bit in the LDL markers. So go in fasting, and I recommend
the high triglycerides bad for you, correct?
Yeah, high triglycerides are bad. You want those under 100. This is critical because a lot of the markers will say it's okay to be up to 150. It's not okay to be up to 150. You get over 100, you're going to drive yourself real subtly into subclinical insulin resistance, and you're also going to put yourself in a place of fat retention as opposed to fat loss opportunity. And so just know that we should be, it's going to sound weird, but it's actually true. We should become fat gain resistant as a society. If we did things right, it'd be a rare thing. You mentioned obesity crisis. It'd be a rare thing to see anyone obese if we did things right from a nutritional standpoint and actually interpreted and did labs correct.
And if you want to lower that bad cholesterol, it's just strictly diet, or is it absolutely diet and exercise?
No, it's going to be all lifestyle. And think about this. It's a weird concept I'm going to throw out there, but don't look at cholesterol as good or bad. Look at it as all as necessary.
Okay.
LDL carries cholesterol for a reason, and it's a good reasons. There are several good reasons. So it never was bad. That's been something we've been sold. It's like a rumor that's like a bell that's been rung. You can't unring it. So it is false advertising. It's deceptive, and it's not bad. And I threatened to write a book one time. God made LDL 2, And by the way, also parasites. So just FYI.
Just frustrate as many people as we
Yeah.
possibly can. Sharon in Michigan says she has a 10-year-old daughter who was created with extra kidneys and ureters. Besides a high fiber, low sodium diet, is there anything else that she can do to help prevent UTIs?
Yeah, definitely keep the processed foods out. Anytime you bring in extra inflammation like this, Sharon, you're going to have an opportunity to create extra UTI or UTI action. So stay hydrated as well. That's very, very important. And I tell you, for your daughter, I would recommend highly the molecular hydrogen water. Have your daughter be drinking that 3 or 4 of those little bottles every single solitary day, because that will help filter out the free radicals, help the kidneys function better, and reduce inflammation as well. And additionally, I mean, who knows that maybe the Lord put an extra kidney there that maybe at some point in time there might be an opportunity to donate to someone else and save a life.
Well, I never thought about that. That's a great point. Tammy in Oregon, Dr. Mark, how do I purchase the Kingdom Skin discussed on your 10-4 podcast? It's not in the store. She says she can't find it on your main site either. I have so many people asking me what I use on my face, and she is just another one.
Well, Tammy, obviously we're going to give a special link to you right here because I want you to get the same thing Heidi's doing for her face. We are actually prevented at present from putting it on the website publicly because it is got peptides in it, but we're working on that diligently to be able to get it out there. So stay tuned, hopefully soon. But in the meantime, you can reach right out to us directly here and say that you heard about it right here from Heidi, or we'll give you a link there that Heidi can post for you to get.
I love that. I love that. Maybe that's something that we can put out in the newsletter as well. So if
Sure.
you guys, everybody should be subscribed to the blog. If you aren't already, that's where all of my new episodes of the podcast get released first. You can go to HeidiSt.com/podcast, or just click on the podcast, click on the blog, and hit subscribe. That's the way to do it. One last question comes from Sharon in Illinois, and she is frustrated because she says she's noticing her skin, back to the skin, starting to sag. She's starting to lose elasticity in her eyelids. Her upper eyelids are starting to droop. Is there anything she can do about that?
Yeah, Sharon, not to be a broken record, but you want to definitely get that Kingdom Skin on board right now, because the reason skin sags, or the reason we get a wrinkle, is because the collagen underneath our skin gets depressed or decreased in its production, leaving a gap. And so really nothing more than saggy skin and wrinkles is not just the reduced elasticity, but it's the reduced collagen fillers behind it, so that skin begins to stop and sag like a pothole in a road, perhaps. So Sharon, you want to do that every day. I've had people ask me, do you need to do it once a day? You can do it once a day. You can do it 5 times a day. It's going to be awesome, and it feels great on the skin. I know, Heidi, you use that as well, and it really is great texture. At least, Sharon, do it at night, every night before bed, after you've taken off all your makeup. Put it on there and go to sleep with it, and let that thing do its healing work.
Yeah, and how important is it to take collagen? I mean, there are a lot of people talking about collagen. I put collagen almost every morning in my coffee. Tell us about the benefits of that.
Well, not coincidentally, this is not scripted, but in this right here is Kingdom Cup coffee and Kingdom collagen. I've got them blended together. The reason I like collagen is because it's the material that is constructed and makes the construction of all of our tissues and bones. We have to have it. Again, what is it that signals that collagen to work? It's part of the peptides in Kingdom Skin. That peptide specifically is going to be BPC 157 and GHK copper. Those drive the construction of that. And if you bring in the material behind it, you have building material, and you have the foreman saying, get to work, fellas. And so it makes it work. And so, by the way, Kingdom Collagen is unique. It not only has collagen, but it has silicone in it. Silicone is the glue that holds collagen together. There's not another collagen out there that has that. And so, same kind of deal. I'll make sure you have a link for that as well. And same, just call it, Kingdom Stuff or whatever. We'll make sure you have it.
All right, good. So you guys look for that, and then we will make sure that you get access to that over at the blog. Make sure that you guys subscribe. Dr. Mark Sherwood, is so great to have you. If people want to find you, where's the best place for them to do that?
Well, go to sherwood.tv/Heidi. I really appreciate people that do reach out. There's a lot that reach out, and so grateful for you. But if you are interested in anything we do, and we're here to help you and bless you and equip you to go out there and do the work you need to do, man, and be who you need to be. So just reach out to us right there at sherwood.tv/Heidi.
I love that. And also just really am enjoying doing a little bit of political analysis with you. Listen, we are not political pundits. We just play one on my podcast and we're having a really great time doing it too. So I really appreciate your thoughts on what's happening politically. For people who are new to the show, they may not remember, but you ran for governor the same year that I ran for Congress. You and I both have a shared love of this country and of politics, and think that everybody should be engaged on one level or another. And you really have set a tremendous example for that. So thank you, my friend. I appreciate you.
Well, I appreciate you as well. That's how we met. And boy, politics and life and spirituality, it's all the same thing. So let's just learn together and earn together and do this thing together.
So good. I really appreciate it. Thank you, my friend. We'll talk to you soon.
Sounds great.
For more information on my friend Dr. Mark Sherwood, hop on over to the show notes today. And again, as you guys heard me say before, he's got an awesome little recipe book. If you want to get that, please subscribe to the Heidi St. John blog. Hit the subscribe button and we will make sure that you get that just in time for Thanksgiving. We also have a brand new list up there, you guys. Wonderful list of books that you will want to have in your home library. These are good books. They're not the sexualized weirdo books the left is pumping out for kids right now. These are really good life-affirming books. You should have your own personal library. Read to your kids, you guys. Read, read, read. This is a great time of year to do it. Snuggle up by the fire and read some books with your kids, and drink a little Kingdom coffee with some Kingdom collagen in it, and come away looking and feeling great, all right? So, hey, you got nothing to lose. We love you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. I am doing a Bible study right now over at Faith That Speaks. You guys can join me. FaithThatSpeaks.com. We're studying the currency of the kingdom, and the kingdom currency is relationships. God is all about relationships. So we're studying that over at Faith That Speaks. I'd love to have you join me, FaithThatSpeaks.com. Have a great day, everybody, and I will see you back here again at the intersection of faith and culture.